The absolute first thing that most people notice when they sit down with Buddhism for long enough is the fact that it makes no promises to you. It makes no assurances that things will ever work out for you. It makes no promises that your suffering has some hidden meaning or hidden purpose behind it. It makes no quiet suggestions that if you just sit and practice hard enough over and over, life will reward you with happiness. That absence is often mistaken for pessimism and nihilism. Instead, what it is restraint. It is not either of those things that I said. It's not pessimism. It's not nihilism. All it is a simple restraint on your mind. Most systems of thought, most philosophies try to keep people moving by offering them hope. Hope that then things will improve in their life. Hope that the meaning will reveal itself later and that your pain will be justified in retrospect. Buddhism doesn't play that game, or any game as a matter of fact. It doesn't tell you that things will get better. All it tells you is that things change, things will change, and that distinction matters so much more than it sounds, than you think it does. Hope always points forwards, and it leans into a future state where something will finally resolve and the puzzle will finally be completed. Buddhism points sideways, upside down, vertical, horizontal. It points everywhere but forwards. It looks at what is already happening and asks why so much of that suffering is self-inflicted, why it's maintained and why it's repeated out of habit instead of out of necessity. It doesn't promise you a better ending. Instead, what it does is offer you a different relationship, a different viewpoint upon what is already here in your life. And that is the reason why Buddhism feels so humane instead of hopeful. It doesn't assume that you need any sort of fixing. Instead, all it does is assume that you are already exhausted from trying to be fixed. At its core, all Buddhism starts with is a simple observation that life includes dissatisfaction. And it doesn't have to be because something is going wrong in your life, but simply because of the fact that things are unstable by nature. Bodies age, that is a fact. Relationships shift, that is another fact. Circumstances will change regardless of how you approach them. Again, that is another fact. Even good moments don't last forever. The problem isn't that these things happen. The problem isn't that these things are natural and they happen no matter what you do about them. The problem is how hard you fight it. The problem is trying to do too much about them. Hope fights that impermanence by bargaining with it. What Buddhism does is meet the impermanence and stops arguing. All it does is listen. Now, if this was the blurb on the back of a book or the opening chapter, so many people would put this down right now, because this is where people get uncomfortable, this truth. Because what hope does is give you something to hold on to for security. Buddhism simply asks what happens when you loosen your grip instead. And it doesn't have to be dramatically, it doesn't have to be all at once. All it has to be is enough to notice how much tension was coming from the holding itself, not the thing you were holding on to. And there's something kind of compassionate and quietly resonating about that. Buddhism doesn't shame you for wanting things to be different. All it does is notice that clinging onto them doesn't work very well. If you chase pleasure, then it fades away. If you avoid pain, it finds another way in, generally amplified as a matter of fact. You build an identity to protect yourself, and it becomes another thing that you now have to defend. It's a bit paradoxical, isn't it? So Buddhism doesn't say to you, be optimistic. Instead, all it says to you is just look closely, just observe, and look at it with a different viewpoint so you finally understand what is actually happening on your life. Look at the way desire operates in your life, how it promises you some sort of satisfaction, and then what it does is it shifts the goalpost. It shifts the goalpost once you arrive there. Look at how the aversion works, how resisting the discomfort multiplies it, and look at how that sense of yourself tightens around experience and instead turns ordinary difficulty into a personal crisis. It turns day-to-day struggles into a lifelong thing which you stick with yourself forever. None of this is framed as moral failure. That's the humane part about it. You're not sinful and you're not broken. You're just caught in some pattern. You're caught in something that doesn't deliver what it promises to you. Hope often delays the peace and it says, not yet, instead you'll receive it later once you put in more work. What Buddhism does is offer you relief now, and it's not because your life improves from Buddhism. Instead, it's simply because the internal struggle softens. You stop needing the future to redeem the present. You stop needing the future to satisfy the past. You stop asking experience to be something different than what it was before you actually met it. And this doesn't make life euphoric. It's not some big revelation where everything clicks and you feel so much better about your life. it just makes it workable. It makes life tolerable. It makes you actually happy to flow with that river instead of trying to fight against it so often. There's a particular kind of compassion and kindness in that truth. Buddhism doesn't motivate you by dangling happiness off of like a fishing rod, like a carrot in front of a pig. Instead, what it does is respect your intelligence enough to tell you the truth. It respects you as a person enough to tell you the reality that no arrangement of circumstances will permanently satisfy you. And once that is seen, once you observe that fact, a lot of the frantic striving for this and for that and these material items and this lifelong goal starts to lose its urgency. And it isn't because you give up for them lifelong goals, but instead just because of the fact that you stop asking life to be something it never actually agreed to be. Which is why, that is, in my opinion, why the Buddhist compassion doesn't feel like some big, over-dramatized, humongous thing. It isn't about saving the world or fixing everyone around you's pain. Instead, it's just quiet. It's about not adding anything unnecessary, any unnecessary suffering on top of what's already hard within your life. It's about not turning every single feeling into a problem to solve, or, a story to protect, anything that you have to safeguard and keep within you. When the hope collapses, people expect despair. Buddhism offers something else to people instead of that despair. It offers them simplicity. You eat when you're hungry, and you rest when you're tired, and you notice thoughts without believing all of them. That is how simple life could be. You feel the emotions without actually making them permanent within your life, and you respond to others without needing them to complete your whole story. None of this sounds inspiring or motivating in the usual way. It's not like, if you hear this, it doesn't feel like you have to get up and go to the gym right now, or you have to, go make $1 million by Friday. Because it's not meant to be that way. I don't think life is meant to be lived in that urgent passage. It's not meant to be summarized down. Life is meant to be humane. That's the humanity of it. That's why you're called a human. It meets people where they are instead of you forcing yourself to meet life where it currently is or where you wish your life could be. Hope says the statement, one day all of this will make sense. Buddhism says this is what is happening, so let's stop making it harder and let's just focus on what is happening right now instead of focusing on the future. That shift in thought processing, that shift in your mindset doesn't cause or resolve any pain. Instead, it's pretty neutral. It doesn't get rid of any pain in your life, but nor does it add any pain. So why not give it a try? In my opinion, all it really does is remove the constant commentary about pain. It removes the constant belief and the presence of pain in your mind. It doesn't promise you meaning. Like I said before, it doesn't promise anything to you. All it does is loosen the need for meaning, loosen the need for a purpose. And in that loosening, in the letting go of that fact, many people find something a lot quieter than hope, but 1,000,000 times more reliable. And what that is, what Buddhism preaches, and what I believe is a key thing to succeeding in life, to being happy, is relief. And it's not relief that comes from believing that things in your life will improve or you will get that job, or relief in believing in the fact that, you may attain that mortgage. You might actually be able to pay off your student loans, etc., etc. But instead, it's relief that comes from no longer demanding that believing things will improve them. I don't know if that makes sense. If it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, try and listen to it again, try and understand. Because I did phrase it badly, but in my opinion, that's why Buddhism survives without any sort of optimism, without any sort of motivation for it to survive. You don't need to fully believe in it for it to exist as a whole. It doesn't need to convince you at all that everything will be okay. All it does, and all it really needs to do, is show you where you are is already enough. Where you are is okay enough for you to stop fighting your reality as if it owes you something. And for a lot of people, I believe that isn't disappointing. Instead, it's merciful. So apologies because I yapped a lot. I got so much brain fog, but I think this video's got a pretty deep meaning. So, come to terms with that and attain that mercy. Again, my mind is going off, but resonate with it. Allow yourself to give yourself mercy. You don't need to just instantly become a Buddhist just because you've watched this video, but I think that every single philosophy, every single religion, every single thought process, every single person has something meaningful to contribute to your life. So if you can just take a single thing from this video, if you can take a single thing from the book of Buddhism or from the book of Christianity or non-duality or Albert Camus or fucking existentialism, if you can just take a single thing from every single one of them, why not? Make your life better in any way that you can.